It's obvious that us commoners will never possibly get to experience a life of loyalty. And don't let that get you down, because to be considered loyalty, not only do you have to play the lottery of life to even be born into a high-class family, but you also have to possess grace, poise, and charisma, obviously. Oh, and let's not forget the occasional scandals that the National Enquirer puts about you. But behind closed doors, there's a monster that lies in between that all of us have to deal with, no matter how much money we have in our bank accounts, and that is spousal emotional abuse. So some background about the Duchess. It was directed by Shaw Bibb, and it co-stars Keira Knightley as the female lead, Georgina. She is set to marry the Duke of Devonshire, so in order to produce a male heir for her future husband and to continue his bloodline. However, she has to go through years of emotional abuse and a little bit of physical abuse to cope. And to cope, she goes on an affair with a politician. To know what abuse is, you have to really understand how it works. And so it is defined by Horizon House as a behavior or action which can interfere and harm a person, whether it's mentally, emotionally, or physically. And with the Duchess, most of this happens behind closed doors, and this really doesn't go into the public, like most scandals do in real life when it comes with the royal family. And some insight on abuse comes from the National Domestic Violence Hotline, and it is reported that from 1994 to 2010, that 4 out of 5 victims were females who were abused by their partner. And so what correlates with this in the movie is that during the 18th century, women were always expected to follow their husband's orders. And so abuse was very highly likely because women didn't have a voice, and so they didn't follow their husbands. Usually their behavior had to be corrected as such.
I must apologize, Mama. We'll be making too much noise.
Not at all, my darling. We have more important things to talk of. Come here. I have heard a rumor.
Yes?
That I will soon be addressing my daughter as Her Grace, the Duchess of Devonshire.
Is it true, Mama?
It is.
The Duke of Devonshire?
I had hoped not to part with you until 18 at the soonest. But with such a fine match, it will be selfish of me not to let you go.
He loves me.
Yes, of course.
I've only met him twice.
When one truly loves someone, one doesn't have to know them well to be sure, Georgina. One feels it right away. I do believe you will be happy with him.
Oh, I shall, Mama. I know I shall.
And so in this scene titled, I Heard a Rumor, we see that Georgina is going to get married to the Duke. And if you see her face expressions, you can tell that she's very excited, that despite not knowing who he really is, she's willing to be married to him and have all these children to continue his bloodline despite not knowing her foretold future. And so before we go into more detail about Georgina's abuse, we should focus on what emotional abuse accounts for. Now, it might not be physical abuse, like wounds that you can actually see. However, it does and it can affect you mentally and emotionally, of course. And so the signs to recognize emotional abuse is if your partner tries to humiliate you, tries to undermine your self-worth, and, you know, negates how you feel, and to also use some sort of guilt to make you feel bad about how you feel. And so in this scene, we see that Georgina, after a few years of being married to the Duke, she starts to get tired of him treating her bad and not giving her what she needs from the marriage. And so when she does confront him, he only meets her with resentment and jealousy.
You can match pause.
It's only a stop.
Oh, you ain't got a pause?
Everybody has
Stop.
pause.
This is say stop.
I got a pause.
They left.
You had to throw yourself on her.
That's the husband.
I have never once objected to any of your affairs. I have accepted whatever arrangement you have proposed. I have raised Charlotte as my own daughter. But this, I have one single thing of my own. Why couldn't you keep Elizabeth from myself? What kind of man are you? She is my sole comfort in our marriage. You have robbed me of my only friend. What is wrong with me?
I've never claimed to be a man of fine sensibility, but I've always known what I expect from this marriage and what I'm prepared to give. As a husband, I have fulfilled my obligations. As a wife, you have not.
She has to go. No. She is never to set foot in this house again.
Do mind your temper, G, you're forgetting.
So after seeing that scene, we can tell that despite her concerns that she tells the Duke about, he still doesn't really care and keeps his affair going. And so that makes Georgina realize that she can only find comfort in another man, possibly. And so that's when she meets Charles Gray, a politician at one of their gatherings. And so they begin their love affair, and it starts to blossom. And we also see that Georgina turns into someone that she's never really been before during her marriage with the Duke. And that is a happy and true, genuine person once we see that.
Duchess of Devonshire appeared last week in Bath in Morecambe. Her Grace, ever since initiation into the business of electioneering, has been much attached to the box.
Very good. So which one's your favourite? This one.
In this one, it seems you've hit a winning streak for once. Very good. And in this one, you see.
I did.
Is that dress really an appropriate way to attract voters?
Politicians know absolutely nothing about fashion.
If you were to really ask me which my favourite was, I'd say it was this one.
Somebody get
So from this scene, we saw that Georgina is very close and personal with Charles Gray. And typically abuse victims try to seek any kind of source of temporary happiness to escape their situations at home. Sometimes it's a permanent solution, sometimes it's not. And as we can see with Georgina, it seems to be a permanent solution. However, once she confronts the Duke about her affair with Charles Gray, he forbids it despite the fact that they're about to have a child. And so she is forced to actually give up her baby to his side of the family and to never see contact with him again.
wow, that's messed up. She did out of work. Ladies, am I right?
But there is some sort of happiness that comes to Georgina's journey. She was able to divorce the Duke and to keep contact with all her 3 children that she had with the Duke, and to secretly see her 4th child in secret, even though she was just played off as an auntie to the little girl. However, despite Georgina's happy ending, some women in our reality aren't so lucky. It is reported that through 2003 to 2008, that 33% of workplace killings were committed by lovers, current or former, against females. Now, even though these numbers do seem scary and that people do die from abuse mentally or physically, there are still a lot of resources and community programs that can help women combat this issue that we have going on today. But there's still work to be done for everyone, and we have to make sure that we always just recognize the signs and keep trying to let those women escape from their abusive relationships that they're in. And so overall, The Duchess is a very well-crafted film that conveys the message about what spousal emotional abuse is and how one woman was able to escape it despite the fact that no one believed that she would be able to overcome it because of her stance and her poise and how she's supposed to be represented as in society. However, we see her as the heroine in the movie that tells women that in our world that we can always overcome this issue and to not give in to the abuse that one has to suffer, even though women are seen as weak, feeble-minded, and not able to think for ourselves. And so before I start my closing statements, are there any questions from the audience that anyone would like to know about the film or the message behind it? Yes.
Yes, did you watch this movie?
Yes, I did. That's why I'm doing a presentation on it.
Stupid.
Are there any more other questions? Yes, Brian.
Was this movie big on the feminism, people?
I would say that it is big on feminism because some women would see Kira, who plays Georgina, as a very flexible woman who can play many roles in the feminist version of possibly themselves in a very historic setting, which can make us feel empowered because it shows that women, that even back then, that we still had a voice, that we still had power within our society, even though society is against women back then and it's still against us today.
Oh.
Okay, the mom of Georgina, okay, she was very happy that she was about to marry this fellow. What was her stance on her having an affair with the other man? Because I could tell she was old-fashioned, so she probably was with him having an affair. We should overlook him having an affair, but how does she feel about the daughter having an affair?
That's a good question. With her being old-fashioned, she believed that it was Georgina's duty to stick by her husband no matter what, and to stay in her place as a woman, despite the fact that she knew that this was wrong, that she let Georgina's friends stay with them in the castle and actually have 3 other sons with him, and she was supposed to overlook it. And
oh,
the
so
thing,
them other 4 wasn't his. I mean, them other 3 wasn't hers.
No, there was only one other.
there was only one other
so
child.
She was pregnant with.
She had 4.
She had 4 children in all.
3 of them with the Duke.
With the Duke, and one of them was with her
lover.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So, being that you know the whole 9, right? How would you put yourself in the Duchess' shoes? How would you live through this situation differently?
I think that, in my honest opinion, I probably would have went a similar route to what Georgina went through. However, I think that if I was able to produce a male her the first time, then I would have just got a divorce right then and there. But if after 3 tries and we have 3 girls, then I probably just would have left and then pursued a relationship with Charles Gray instead of going into a relationship while I was still with the Duke, because of his abusive nature and his jealous nature and his resentment against Georgina. It can make it very hard to maintain just even a friendship, obviously, and a relationship only makes it 10 times worse to maintain too.
Being that the Duke only saw her 2 times before they was even trying to get married, don't you think that he hadn't got a chance to sow his royal
That was
oats?
back then. They didn't care like that.
I just asked the question.
They see a chick and they want them and they gonna
So, back to my question. Being
Right.
that the Duke only had seen her twice,
The question is too common compared to back
That's
then.
what I'm
don't you
saying.
think he wasn't
Back
just
then,
ready, to just get,
Sometimes they didn't even know each other and got married.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
It was
Yes,
like a
it-
wife and
but- I
husband
mean,
was
that
already
was-
chosen.
As a wife, you should automatically know that he only seen me twice and he's not done.
Some people
Well,
just
the thing
meet
is-
and get
Royalty.
married.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Royalty.
So the
So
thing
he's
is
gonna
about
do it
back
anyway,
then-
right? So why marry?
Back
Because
then,
that's how it was back
She
then.
wasn't
I'd rather be
royalty.
poor, right?
well,
necessarily.
not
You gonna
necessarily.
be happy.
They didn't
Yeah.
care about that junk back then, man. I keep
Oh,
saying,
so they didn't care about being happy.
they can meet each other
That's the
for
point
the
of getting
first
married,
time and right at the altar, just like come to America.
No.
They didn't know each other.
Yeah, they didn't meet each other till the altar.
Right.
And what he did.
That's back then.
Back then.
That's
Back
what he
then.
did. That
Okay,
was
so-
further back then.
Okay, so if I'm the dude,
coming back
You
to
talking
America
about
was
back
more
then,
common.
talking about right now.
Coming back
It's
to
gonna be the
America
same
was
thing,
more
right?
common and more
No,
options.
because they don't practice
Right.
that today.
not gonna be the
Exactly.
same thing.
Exactly.
So why would you follow suit?
Okay, so is there
Anybody.
any more questions?
Ain't nobody
See,
doing
this
it.
why I get kicked out
It
of
turned
church.
into a dance.
Well, my professor will like this discussion.
Yeah.
Are there any more other questions?
Yeah.
You got some more?
Okay,
Come on.
one last one.
Okay, so
From you.
where was her father?
That's a
Our
good
father-
thing.
Yeah, where was he?
Her father actually didn't appear in the film, so we have to convey that he was actually just dead, and it was only just her mother there.
What if he was a Rolling Stone?
Well, she was still a part of an influential family, which is why she was actually able to even just marry the Duke.
Okay.
In
See,
the first
so why
place.
do
So
that?
they didn't practice marrying commoners during that time.
No.
Okay.
But obviously they slept with them. So.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. You gotta stay with the convey game.
yeah.
He got a question.
Okay,
So
The last one was the last one.
my final thoughts on the Duchess is she
You haven't
waited
seen
too
it.
long.
She waited too long for it.
Why have 3 kids if you know you're getting cheated on every day?
It was back then.
It don't matter.
It was kind of.
It was kind of common back then.
What do you mean it doesn't matter?
It doesn't matter. If you getting cheated on every day,
You speaking too
But
common.
that was back then, though.
You speaking
Exactly.
on
I
common
keep saying
terms.
that.
it doesn't matter.
Things were
Back
different
then,
then than
now,
now.
the future.
Now it's different.
Every
It's out of
second is
control
the
now.
present.
Women didn't have a voice back then, so it does matter.
She
Women
was
didn't have a
actually
voice
stuck
then,
then.
and they have
So
a
she was
voice
stuck.
now.
It was in the
Yeah.
90s when they developed having a voice, man.
The 90s?
No.
No.
They start rising.
You got that on video?
The feminist movement started in the late 60s, early 70s.
Okay, 90s.
So,
You said okay, 90.
I mean, not in the 1900s. I'm bad. My bad. That's what I
you
meant.
meant the 1900s?
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Okay,
My bad.
hope
My
so.
bad.
Say it again. Look in the film.
1900s. I meant.
Okay.
So look,
Okay, one last thought. Then we got
If it don't matter, don't ask.
For real.
my personal opinion is
That ain't a question.
okay. Well, I'm gonna ask the question. What is a duke?
No, why would you ask
A
that
Duke
question?
is a high official in the royal court. It's
Exactly.
under a prince, but you know they still carry out a lot of responsibilities
So it's-
that a prince or queen or princess would have.
Much like a chain of command,
Exactly.
Basically.
That's what I was
Except
just
for it's a
gonna
hierarchy.
Yeah.
A monarchy.
as opposed to military terms.
Right.
Exactly. Okay. So
He got another question.
nope, we can't take any more questions.
One more question. I want
One
to
more.
hear this.
Okay, one more. One
say.
more.
So
I want
what was his average duties?
a dude, man.
Like, what did he do on the daily?
Well, just what the queen would do on the daily in Britain. She greets commoners. She makes sure that she keeps her influence over England, and I would pretty much be sure that he would have to keep his influence over Devonshire and to, have meetings and other types of politicians and rallies to, create allies and make sure that if he had any rivals that they weren't trying to, ambush him at
He
any
was
point.
just as recognized.
So where's Devonshire located?
I don't know. It's possibly fictional. This film is based on a true
Like what
story.
kind?
However, the place is set in a fictional setting.
Oh,
Okay.
that's nice.
Okay.
I think I want to watch it.
Me too. Me too.
I think this is very educational.
Okay. So before we go, I have some last final thoughts.
Okay.
That the Duchess basically conveys a message about how abuse can affect anyone, no matter how poor, no matter how rich, and that even when you're affected by real life hitting you, that there's always help that you can get. You just can't be embarrassed by it. You can't be ashamed about it either, too.
Too late.
And so that's really what sums this movie up, is that people don't really get to see a message behind a movie because movies are for entertainment. They're not for, stimulating the mind to think on a higher level or being woke. But that's another presentation for another time. And so I thank you all for coming out to listen to me. And I hope you all enjoy and watch the Duchess on Netflix.
It's